It's no secret that filming underwater can be pretty tricky, and is arguably the hardest thing to do with an action camera. Whether you're scuba diving, snorkeling, or anything in between, filming underwater can be difficult. However, if you know the right filming tips, you can capture some pretty cinematic footage. Hey guys, it's Raymond here, and today I'm going to be giving you 7 tips to make your underwater videos better with your GoPro Hero 11. Now before I get into this, if you love underwater and adventure videos, make sure to subscribe to my channel with notifications turned on. One of the biggest problems I see with underwater footage is the color. Sometimes your footage can be too green, and if you're too deep underwater, the footage is too blue. One of the biggest standouts in good underwater footage is the color, and there's certain things you can do to capture the best color. Years ago, I would have recommended using dive filters, but in the last few years, those have become kind of obsolete. Don't get me wrong, they can still be useful, but I'd recommend doing some other things. First off, the Hero 11 has introduced 10-bit color for the first time on a GoPro. To break it down, previous GoPros filmed in 8-bit, which captures around 16.7 million different colors. However, 10-bit allows for the Hero 11 to capture over 1 billion. So obviously, it can be useful for underwater video. This is probably the best setting to use while underwater, but the only downside is that it's not available in all frame rates. But nonetheless, 10-bit will help you create great underwater footage. You can also adjust the white balance on your Hero 11, which is another incredibly useful feature. This is something that I tune up every time I go diving. You can change how blue or red your video looks, which will determine how much color your video captures. If you're diving deep or in very blue water, you want to channel more red into your video. Using those two settings to your advantage, along with the ability to color correct while editing, allow for you to capture some great underwater footage. In my opinion, the most useful feature on GoPro cameras is Hypersmooth stabilization. With the Hero 11, we're now up to Hypersmooth 5.0, and boy does it work. Now this footage is on land, but it gives you an idea of how great this feature works. Another big issue I see with underwater footage is the lack of stabilization. When you film underwater, you want your shot to be stable, and you want it to have more of a relaxed look. And Hypersmooth allows for you to do this. You can also use Hypersmooth Boost, which amps up your camera stabilization even more. However, it does crop your video by 10%. Hypersmooth works in every setting and frame rate, so make sure to turn it on in your Hero 11 settings, as it will help you create some really cinematic looking footage. I can't tell you how many times I've been on a dive boat and seen people filming with their GoPro in their hands. Doing this makes it really hard to create good looking shots, which is why you need some sort of handle while filming. Please don't be that guy holding the camera in his hand. Personally, I've always used an underwater light tray when I film. This helps me create the smoothest looking shots, and I do think it's the best for underwater video. You also have the option to attach lights to it, which is always a bonus. Another good one to use is the underwater selfie stick or 3-way mount. Now this has to be the most commonly used underwater mount, and for good reason. You're able to of course get good shots of yourself while underwater, but also get your camera closer to some of the action. Now there's a plethora of mounts you can use. For example, the buoy stick is another good one, but those two are what I think are the best. It's no secret at all that filming underwater is pretty tricky, and a lot of people get held back because of the settings they're using. People will buy the new Hero 11 camera and just use the preset settings. However, once you get under the surface, things drastically change. The footage you capture in 5 feet of water will be very different than at 70 feet, which is why you need to know which settings to use. When you're going down deeper, you don't have as much light as you do at the surface, which is why turning down your frames per second will make your video look better. This allows for your camera to capture more available light, and I recommend doing this if you're going deeper than 60 feet. I typically film in 4K 120 because I love to be able to slow down my footage, but if I'm going deeper, then I'll lower my frames per second to 24 or 60. Video resolution also matters while filming. The Hero 11 goes all the way up to 5.3K, but that doesn't mean you always have to use it. While snorkeling, 2.7K 240 or 4K 120 work great. The higher frames per second allows for you to capture all of the action, and you're able to slow down your footage if you want. But while diving, this is when I'd recommend using at least 4K video, with 5.3K being a good option as well. Things are a lot slower when you're diving, and having the best video resolution will work in your favor. 5.3K 60, 4K 120, and 4K 60 all work great for diving. When you're filming underwater, what kind of footage do you want to capture? Hopefully you answered either cinematic or awesome looking footage. Underwater video isn't like anything else. You need to be slow and steady and create a cinematic look, which is where slow motion comes in handy. The Hero 11 is able to capture video in 8 times slow motion. Now this is the same as the Hero 10, but it works really well. This is why I love to film in 120 frames per second, no matter where I am, because I love to be able to slow down my footage. Filming in either 120 or 240 frames per second is very useful for slow motion. If you want your underwater footage to look good, then slow motion will definitely help you do that. This tip is a quick one as it has to do with battery life. The Hero 11 comes with a new type of battery called the Enduro Battery, which is said to give you around 38% more filming time depending on what resolution you're using. Now make sure you're always using the Enduro Battery while underwater instead of the traditional batteries. The Enduro also gives you better performance in hot and cold temperatures. I've seen this way too many times. People underwater who are all over the place while filming. Granted, this can easily happen to any of us. There's so many different things to see and film underwater, and we want to be able to capture it all with our cameras. However, you need to remember to take your time. This not only makes you a better diver or snorkeler, but filmmaker. Of course, it helps you create better shots, but it's also beneficial for seeing marine life. If you're really frantic underwater and swimming around real fast, most of the fish and things you want to see typically hide in the reefs or wrecks. But if you take your time, you're able to see and film a lot more things. You should also remember to maintain good buoyancy. All of this together helps you create the best underwater shots possible. Alright guys, now that is going to wrap up today's video, but before you go, make sure to smash that like button, comment down below what you think, and most importantly subscribe with notifications turned on so you never miss out on awesome videos just like this one. I'm Raymond Tiller, and I'll see you on the next video.